What's up YouTube? Welcome back to Habitually Handy. Today we're going to be talking about chainsaw maintenance.
I'm Neil, and 7 years ago I quit my job in aviation and went to work building a house for my growing family. Little did I know that experience would lead to a second career involving construction, urban forestry, landscaping, and running my own business. My whole life I've been drawn to doing things myself, and hope that these videos inspire you to make being handy your new habit. Please subscribe and welcome to the show.
Okay, so I've got two chainsaws here on the bench, and basically I'm just going to go through what I do on a weekly maintenance check and a daily maintenance check. So the first thing that I'm going to do when I come up to the saw to do a daily maintenance check is I'm just going to confirm that all of the safety features of the saw are intact. So the inertial bar brake, the throttle interlock, so basically that you can't pull the trigger without the throttle interlock being depressed. I'm gonna check that the chain catcher pin is intact and it's not bent or broken, and I'm gonna look at the wrist guard and make sure that the wrist guard is intact and there's no cracks in the wrist guard. The next thing I'm gonna do, and I'll just run through it on both these saws as I go, and that way we can get it done quicker. I'm gonna check the air filter. On the Husqvarna, well, it depends on your saw. There's gonna be a bunch of different ways to get into your saw. But the first thing I'm gonna do is just pop the air filter off. And air filter cleaning, the manufacturer's recommendation on both Husqvarna and Stihl is that you just tap out the air cleaner. That's their recommendation, is to tap it out, get any big bits off of it. They don't recommend blowing them off with an air compressor. Even though that's really tempting, that's not the recommended practice. Air filters are really cheap, so once they get gunged up, then you just replace them. So that's the first thing I'll do, is just tap off. This one's actually pretty clean. I'll just tap off the air filter, make sure that's all good. And then on a daily, I just put this cover back on. Sometimes inside this cover will be super dirty, and I'll just take the air compressor and blow this cover out. But for the most part, once I've tapped the air filter out, this cover just gets put back on. So on a weekly maintenance, I'm not really doing anything extra in here. I'm just gonna blow all of this out and inspect and look at everything and make sure everything's looking okay. There's no like cracked cylinders or, you know, beat up stuff in there. But really, on a weekly, I'm not doing much more in here. If I'm doing a really heavy maintenance, I'll replace the spark plug. Like if I'm doing a yearly maintenance, I'm gonna replace the plug. But that's pretty rare. So, like I said, every year. So that cover goes back on. That's pretty straightforward. On the Stihls, it's like on this Stihl, it's slightly different. This just this one cover comes off the back, and then the air filter comes off same way. This is like this black polymer style filter, but it's the same procedure. You just tap it out and then put this back on. Next thing I'm gonna do on a maintenance is I'm gonna pull the side plate cover off. On the Husqvarna, you want to make sure that the bar brake is taken off before you pull this cover. So on this saw, the nuts are actually captive nuts. So you don't have to worry about losing the nuts, especially if you're doing this in the field. Pull the nuts off, or pull the cover off, and you can see in here that this is just completely disgusting inside. And that is after just a day of use. I'm cleaning this saw after that, what was the video called? Shelter belt logging, I think. So we use this saw, we use both these saws quite a bit on that day. So I'm just basically getting into the guts of this thing. On the Husqvarna, it has an outboard clutch, and on a Stihl, it's an inboard clutch. So I'll show you the difference here in a sec. But basically with this, I'm just gonna take the chain off. And the bar comes off. And then all I'm gonna do on a daily is I'm just gonna clean all of this out. Like I'm just gonna scrape all the gunge out. Usually if I'm at the shop, I'll blow it all out with an air compressor. So I'll show you that in a minute. And then blow out the cover, and then do a bit of maintenance on the bar and the chain. And then basically put it all back together. That's sort of my daily on both of the saws. Stihl, the bar and chain can basically come off together because this clutch is inboard, whereas this clutch, you can see, is outboard. So yeah, on a daily maintenance check, what I'm doing now is I'm just gonna clean all of this up, get rid of all the gunge in there, clean this, and do my bar maintenance and sharpen my chain. So that's kind of the daily. Like at this point, I would clean these things, and then I would start putting everything back together. I'd clean the bar, and then I'd start putting everything back together. Okay, so bar maintenance, basically all I'm doing with bar maintenance is I want to clean the bar groove out. And the way that I do that is with either a screwdriver that's thin enough to get all the way to the bottom of the bar groove, or you can use a depth gauge. If your depth gauge has a tool for it, you can use that. And you basically just run your tool down and get all of the gunge and gross stuff out of your bar. This is also where you can use an air compressor to once you've scooped it out, you can blow it out with an air compressor. Once you've done that, both sides, then I just go down and feel the bar for any major burrs. And then on a daily, all I'm gonna do is just flip the bar. So if I'm running it, the letters the right side up today, I'll run it upside down tomorrow. The reason that we do that is because 90% of the time you're cutting on the bottom part of the bar. And so if you just keep flipping the bar, then you extend your bar life by almost double. The other really critical thing to do right now when you're cleaning your bar groove is to make sure that your oiler hole is open, because if your oiler hole isn't open, then the chainsaw won't be able to push oil out of the oiler into the oiler hole to lubricate your chain and your bar tip. You want to make sure that this little oil hole right here is clean. So you can use a little piece of wire, you can use a mechanic's pick to get in there and make sure there's nothing in there, or if I'm in the shop, very often I'll use compressed air just to make sure that nothing's blocking that hole. Now's a good opportunity, once you've cleaned that out, if you have access to compressed air, to just blow out in between those guide rails. Weekly bar maintenance. I'm going to check for burrs all the way along the bar, both sides, and get rid of any burrs with a flat file. And I want to stay, I always file away from the sprocket so that I don't pack a bunch of filings into the sprocket. So I'm just going to go along and I'm going to clean up any areas that have burrs. And this bar is in actually really quite good shape. So I'll just use a flat file and clean up any burrs. Don't forget to check at the back, make sure there's no burrs there. A little one right there. Make sure everything's good. Then the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check to make sure that the guide rails are the same height. And the way that I do that is on a level surface, I put the bar down, and if the bar stands up straight like this, it's good. If it won't stay standing up, if it keeps falling over, it means that one of these guide rails is lower than the other guide rail. And that will lead to, when you're cutting, that will lead to your cuts being crooked. So if you're always cutting and you're cutting bananas, it's very likely that your guide rails need to be filed. Okay, so with the bar in a vise, you just take your flat file and you hold it level and you just push away from you. And again, you're pushing away from the bar tip on this side, and you're just filing those guide rails down evenly on both sides. So this technique is called draw filing, and if you look at the way a file cuts, you can cut either straight with a file or sideways with a file. So you just draw a file down your guide rails until they're both even, and when you put it on a flat surface, it won't tip over. This bar, we just checked it and it's good, so we're not gonna go crazy with it. Okay, so to put the bar back on the Husqvarna, basically what we're doing is we're making sure that our oiler hole is clean, and then we're putting the bar on, and then so on a Husky you got to put the bar on, then you got to put the chain on. Make sure you put the chain on with the teeth facing the right way. Because if you don't, you'll curse yourself later. And then you can put your side plate cover on. only difference with the Stihl is that you can preload the chain onto the bar, and then you can sort of drop the whole kit and caboodle around the sprocket. And the only reason that you can do that is because of the inboard clutch. So the sprocket is way more accessible. So with chain tension, tip of the bar has to be up. The reason for that is if we tension this chain, where's my tensioner? There we go. If we tension this chain right now till the point where it's touching, if we lift the bar tip, the chain goes loose. So you have to lift your bar tip in order to maintain the chain tension that you apply. So I just lift the tip, and then what I do is I go till the tie straps touch the bottom of the bar, and then I go plus a quarter turn. And then I tighten the bar nuts down. Now, tightening the bar nuts, the way that I set the bar nut tension is by using the vibration dampers in the saw. So I tighten until I see the vibration dampeners offset, and then that's tight enough. And that's basically done for daily or a weekly, depending on which you're doing. All right, guys, I'm gonna make a part 2 to this, all on chain sharpening, because that's a whole topic in itself. So that's it for daily and weekly chainsaw maintenance, minus sharpening, so tune in for part 2. And if you like this, hit that thumbs up button, give me a follow, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.